It's a lot easier to hear me with the microphone on, so there's that. It's a lot easier to hear me with the microphone on. So welcome to the EdTech Live Show with me, Mr. Howard. I will be your host today, and we are going to get with some smart technology learning suite here in just a second. So we'll give people just a minute, make sure we're here. We got a few folks watching out there in the world. If you would be so kind as to just make sure that you are getting logged in. So hopefully you have this page up. I'm going to transition here in a second. Here we go. Hopefully you got this page up where you can have access to our resources and things for today. There is a login on there, so if you are a Fulton Public Schools teacher, that would be cool if you would go ahead and log in on that page. Well, easier this way. Good. If you don't have access to this, let me drop this into the chat. That link will get you to the page that has the resources and a link to the live stream and all of that kind of good stuff. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go back to our where is it? I need to mute this volume. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what Smart Learning Suite is. The tools that we're going to want to have access to today for this particular presentation are going to be, you'll want to be able to access the Smart Learning Suite, and if you can't do that right now, I'll show you how to get there in a second. You'll want to be able to locate your Google Drive. There's a lot of ways to get there, so we'll talk about that as well. And then you probably want to use Google Chrome. It's not required, but it's going to be, I always say it's the thing that your students are going to be using, so it's probably a thing that you'll want to use as well, just so you're familiar with the way the students will access it. And Chrome is just the way that it works best. It's just designed to work with Chrome. It's all Google stuff, keeping it simple, keeping it easy that way. All right, so if you want to, you can join me on this presentation or not. It's not mandatory, but this will get us on the same page. And if you want to come back and kind of see some of this stuff later, you totally can. It's more for organization than for really worrying about helping you learn how to do it better. So today we're talking about Smart Learning Suite. It is made by Smart Tech, who, if you have a smartboard in your classroom, if you've ever used Smart Notebook, it is the same people who made those things. And I know that a lot of people don't really use Smart Notebook anymore, and some people have kind of moved away from using smartboards as well. And you know what? I don't blame you. With the technology that we have access to, one-to-one, all that kind of stuff, we don't need to all be doing everything the same way. So, but that said, to kind of roll with the times, Smart Tech has released a few months ago this new product called Smart Learning Suite. And what Smart Learning Suite is, it's a lot of the same functions and the tools that you were seeing in your Smart Notebook, but this time you can access it through your Google Drive. You can open up those lessons, and those there's a lot of interactive programs and activities and gamified little bits and pieces that are part of Smart Learning Suite that before you had to be in their technology on like a Windows or a Mac computer. Now you can do all that through the browser on Chrome, and you can share it out through Google Drive very easily. There's even stuff that you can do like one-to-one digitally. You can have students and you on the same lesson, and you can kind of control. And I'm talking too much about it. I ought to just show it to you. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about our ISTE standards. So as practitioners in the classroom, we want to ensure that we are on the cutting edge of what our students need to know, and that means we need to be using these ISTE standards in the way that we use our instruction. So the first one we're going to talk about here is Designer. All this is we're thinking about the way that we implement our lessons, and we're using technology to create lessons that are different. They foster independent learning, they accommodate different learning styles, and the activities align with content area, but they also pull in some new resources to kind of maximize the type of learning that our students are getting. And then facilitator. So this is the way that we teach students. So what the facilitator standard says that we're doing is we are giving students ownership. We're fostering a culture where students have ownership and they can work in independent on their own and in group settings in our classrooms with other students and with us. And then we're just using these digital platforms to basically think about the kind of strategies, how we can change the way that we teach students using digital platforms, using virtual environments, hands-on activities, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing with technology fits into that very well. Student standards, we're not really talking about student behavior today in this session, so don't worry too much about student standards for this one, but you know, I would say students are on the screen, students are looking at stuff, but students aren't really through this hitting a lot of ISTE standards as far as creating things or being a digital citizen, a global citizen, that kind of stuff. So don't worry too much about that. Okay, so let's talk about the why of using Smart Text Suite here. So the main thing about it is it kind of transforms the way that you can put your lessons out there to your students. It takes it from a static lesson where I'm going to put some slides up on the board and everybody's going to look at it and we're all going to share it in the same way, in a static way, right? It allows you to take that same format, slides-based lesson editor, but turn it into something interactive. So you think about delivery, you think about assessment, collaboration, gamifying. All of that stuff can be jammed into the lessons that you design with Smart Learning Suite. So a lot of us use stuff like PowerPoint or Google Slides. Those don't accommodate all of these things like collaboration, assessment, gamification, as well as something like Smart Learning Suite. So we'll be showing you some of that here in a few moments. So back in the past, this is something that was only available on desktop computers, Mac and Windows. These days, with the release of Smart Learning Suite, this can happen anywhere online, any device, even if you're not all in the same room. And we're going to do that a little bit today as we go through our lesson. So this helps us facilitate a flexible classroom. I like to use this picture to illustrate exactly what's happening here. So if you see that you have the teacher here, then you have students all able to learn in different ways at different speeds. Not everybody has to be engaging with the content in the same way at the same time. So you kind of move away from being the leader of the learning, the person who's in charge of moving through the lesson. You've now prepared the lesson and you have this set of opportunities, this set of learning experiences that students will kind of come through and can move through on their own. Now that's a possibility. The other is you can still be the learner, but you also open up all these back doors and avenues to doing all these other learning activities. For example, you could integrate your assessments and your collaboration directly into the lesson while you're working. Okay, we'll get back to this in a second. I actually want to move on to talk a little bit about Smart Learning Suite at this point. So to get to Smart Learning Suite, there's a couple of different ways that you can get there, but the way that you'll probably want to start doing that is through your Google Drive. So you can import a lesson or you can start a lesson brand new, but they're both kind of going to work in the same way. So if you go to your drive and click New, and typically this is how you'll create a new Google Doc folder or a Google document, right? But for what we're going to be doing here is we are going to click New, and we're going to go down here where it says More, and then this is, if you have a lot of attached apps like I do, you'll see all this other stuff. Most people won't have all these kind of things. But if you scroll down, eventually you're going to see the one that says Smart Learning Suite right here. And we're going to want to click on that and open that up. So this is actually going to tell us, so I've been in here before. It might prompt me to log in, or it might actually just let me directly into the Smart Learning Suite. We'll just let this load for a second and see what happens. Okay, so I loaded right in. Now it might ask you to log in with your Google account. That's fine. That's all you really have to do. Just log in with that social provider, and that way it will tie you to the district license that we have to use Smart Learning Suite. So that is It's this isn't just like a freely available thing. You have to be part of the site license. So as long as you have your email and you log in that way, you'll be able to access this screen. And this is going to be your lesson creation screen. Before we do anything else, you don't have to create a brand new lesson from scratch. So the first thing you can do is you can start with a file that you already have. You can import a Smart Notebook file. So if you've been using Smart Notebook in the past, you can just upload those directly in through here and run them that way. You can also upload a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF file. So at this time, you can't put a Google slide in here. That is supposed to be being added very shortly. You know, hopefully that becomes sooner or later. There is a kind of a hack to get your slides on here that I can show you. But either way, we're going to start today first by importing from our device. And I'm going to just pull up, I just have this lesson. This is just a sample lesson that I will use. So if I want to take my Google Slides here and make a lesson out of this, I'm going to have to turn it into a supported file type. So I'm just going to go to File and download this as a PDF document. And this way I'll be able to upload this back into Smart Learning Suite to create a lesson out of it. So my lesson just downloaded here. I'm going to go back to Smart Learning Suite and I'm going to import this from my device. So if that PDF was already on my drive, I could just import it from the drive, but it wasn't. So I'm going to import this from my device if I can find this. This could be the thing that takes us hours for me to be able to find a specific file on my particular computer at this moment. So let me do a quick search for this lesson. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to open that up. And this can take a little bit, especially if it's a lot of slides, if it's a lot of content that it has to take from your slides and turn into a lesson that you're going to be running through Smart Learning Suite. This can take a few, even a few minutes, maybe like a minute. But that's just kind of what we'll wait on that here for a second. Okay, so now it has done it, and you'll see that this now looks a lot like Smart Notebook. You have your slides over here on the side. You have your slide editor. You can come in here and you can start to change this stuff. Now, whenever you import from a PDF, none of this stuff can be moved around anymore. That's okay. If you did want to do it that way, you can create the lesson through Smart Notebook, and it will do it that way too. But the cool part of this isn't the interactivity. It's all of the collaboration that you'll be able to do, all the basically the one-to-one stuff that you can do with students while they're on the lesson. Okay, so after you import your PDFs or your slides or whatever, you'll be at the editor like this. So at this time, you could come in here, you could hit this plus button to add new slides. You could put additional information on here, put text on it, whatever. You have a lot of opportunities here. So I just want to show you a couple of things that you can do once you've created your lesson. So let's say after the first slide, I want to put in a slide here where I'm going to ask the students a question. So I'm going to click the plus down here, and it says, would you like to add a new activity or a new assessment? So you have activities, you have a whole ton of things you can engage students in. And then you have assessments. That's where you can see how well students know something, gather data, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to click activity here. And I'm going to make this one be, you have a ton of options here. And there's a couple of different types. The first, for example, these all up here that don't say devices required can be done in the classroom without having every kid have access to their own device. So like, for example, if everybody didn't have a Chromebook, you could still come up to the board and do memory match, right? These that say devices required do require every student, or at least there to be other devices available in the classroom. So you could use a phone, you could use a Chromebook, you could use any other device that the student would have access to. They could use at the same time. So I'll actually just start with, we'll do a match them up, okay? So I'll do money or not money. And then you can put an image or text. So I'm going to actually just use text because I don't want to upload a ton of images. But if you could have the way that they sort these be pictures as well. So I'll just put dollar, penny, nickel. And then over here for not money, I'll say spoon, door, puppy. And then I'll click next. Now you'll create you'll select a theme for that activity. So this one I'll just put the dragon, right? Click finish. So now you have this cool little activity here. I'm going to go ahead and click preview so I can see what it's going to look like. So you have all of these things here that have to be sorted, right? So if I'm on the night team, I'm going to move this over here. And does it match? Oh yeah, it does. And then what's not money? Door, that goes here. Oh no! So the dragon attacked the guy, right? There we go. Good pair. Oh, I have this set up for pairs. So nickel goes with puppy, and then door goes with penny. So I got all the pairs. I didn't mean to make that one be a matching pair. I meant for that to be a sorting activity. But you get the idea. You could put like pairs together and they could be sorted that way. But since I screwed that up, I can just close out of this, edit it, and I could change, put in the activity that I meant to do. I'll just go back here, go to activity, and I meant to do on that one a super sort. That's what I wanted for that one. So no big deal. I can do the same thing with a super sort, right? So also you could do like a response. You want students to answer a question, right? So I'll click on this one, and we'll just have it be a short answer question. And for this question, I'll just type, what is the biggest type of money you can think of? And then you can put a picture here. Again, I'm not going to put a picture, so I don't have pictures ready to design my lessons. But if you did want to throw a picture in there so the question could reference that picture, you can do that. So this is going to be open answer. I'm going to click next, and then we'll have it be types of money to be the title, and then instruction, answer the question. Finish. And so now I have a different question here. This is going to be whenever students get here in the lesson, it's going to ask them to type up a response. So this one is student devices required, and I'm going to actually illustrate that by having, if you're out there watching, you can actually join us in a lesson here. I am going to click finish editing up here so we can try some of these things out live. So once you've made a lesson in Smart Learning Suite, you can actually run it directly on your device while every student is on a different device can follow along with you, right? So I am going to back to the first slide here. So I've opened up this lesson here. And sorry, I'm going to restart this lesson. Okay, so if you're watching and you want to participate in today's lesson, and this is how your students will access this as well, is they need to go to this URL, hellosmart.com, and then they need to join with that number, right? So I actually am going to pull up my other Google account over here, and I'm actually going to boot him out. Okay, because I want to rejoin this, and I want to show you what that looks like. So I am pulling up my other Google account over here. I'm going to type in hellosmart.com, and that's going to take me to kind of like a login page. Now there's a couple of options here. Students can be logged in to a account, and that way it'll like track their progress and all that stuff. And students can also log in as a guest. So the first time I do it, especially if this is something that you plan on using quite a bit, I would have students log in first and then join your lesson. But if you are only going to use this once, you might just want them to join as a guest, whatever. So what you do at this page is you'll type in the number that was here, this number. You will type it in this page, and then once that's done, we're going to join. And I should be getting a joiner over here. So I'm going to type that number in. That number is, oh gosh, it's hard to do this on two screens, 581913. So I'm going to type in 581913 and then click join. And now I am in the class and I am following along with my teacher. So this browser right here that you see is me as a student logged into the lesson. You'll see that as soon as I logged in, the student's name popped up right here. So as people join the class, you'll be able to see who's actually in your class based on the screen name that they typed in to be in your class. Okay, so once your students start joining the class, you have a couple of options here for lesson pacing. So the two options are teacher paced. That's where as soon as the teacher has started that lesson and students have logged into the lesson, you get to decide when the slide moves forward. So that means students can't look ahead or get caught behind. Their screen is going to go no matter what. They're going to be on the same slide as you while you're talking. They'll see it. That'll also mean as you get to activities, you can also lead those activities so every student is there at the same time, which is convenient. Now, for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to have teacher-led, or you're working with small groups or something and you don't necessarily need to be in charge of the pacing of the lesson, you can switch it over to student, and then students will then get an alert. As you can see at the bottom, you can now go to any page in this lesson. So then I could work through this lesson on my own, go through, do all those activities, and then you could just check on my progress later. So you have both of those options when it comes to the way that the lesson pacing is designed. Okay, so now nobody else has joined the course, so hopefully you are at least following along. It's going to be hard for you to see what's happening in the lesson if you're not part of the course. All right, so I'm going to actually go back to the lesson here. I'm going to click on it. So now I'm just in the normal lesson mode. So as you'll be able to see, I'm going to try to put both of these on here. So this is my teacher one, and this is the student one. Okay, so this is teacher, and this is student. So you'll see as soon as I move the lesson forward, the student one's going to go forward too. Because I haven't, oh, maybe I didn't. Oh, I left it on student pacing. All right, I'm back on teacher pacing now. And I'm going to go back to my lesson, and you'll see that when I move as a teacher, the lesson moves forward for the student too, right? So I'm just going to do some of these activities. You can kind of see what it looks like when a student is interacting with the content that you've already designed in the lesson. So we'll go to this one here. This one's called Match 'em Up. And you'll see here that says students can also complete this activity individually on their own devices, or they could come up and do it on the board. So that's up to you. But since every student's going to have their own device, as soon as you click Start, they can then click Start, and they can actually do the activity too. So you could actually just have this up on the board, or you could have every student doing this on their own on their screen, which is convenient for however way you want to teach it. So then we would just do the activity. The students would match these up. I did a poor job of designing this particular activity. All right, so this student just finished his lesson. Nice job. Let's say we're doing this on the smart board too. Nickel and puppy, dollar and spoon. Okay, finished. So once you're done with these activities, you can review it and look back at the answers, or you can reset it and do it again. We're not necessarily going to do that here, but you have the option of doing that. All right, so we're going to go to the next slide, and you'll see that as soon as we go to the next slide, it's going to take our student page forward as well. So again, students cannot control the movement of the slides. That's totally dependent on you. All right, I'm going to click Start for Class here. And once the activity starts, you'll see that the question pops up onto the student page, right? So the directions will pop up first. It says types of money, answer this question. What is the biggest type of money you can think of? I'll say a $100 bill. And the cool thing is while the students are answering these questions, you get updates about who's answered what, right? So like if you have 20 students in class and 10 of them answer, it'll say 50%. So you'll know, okay, I'm waiting on a few people, right? You can then click show questions here, and then you'll be able to see the students' answers. Now you don't have to show the student answers. You can if you want. That'd be a great formative assessment for you to kind of go through and show off how students had responded to that particular question. You can kind of talk about that with your class. All right, so we'll go ahead and end this activity and review. So it'll take us to the review over here on the student page. You can see they'll be able to see students' answers. And then you can again review the activity or reset the activity, totally up to you. So you do have these kind of activities where students are required to have their own device, they can submit, and then you can move on as soon as every student is done. You can kind of keep track of who's ready with that. So let's talk about a couple of other things that we can do with Smart Learning Suite. So if you click up here on these three, pardon me, on this little silhouette of, so if you have like the students in your class, it'll have the number of students who are live tuned into your class at the moment. Right now it's just one because I have one other person in here. But if you click on that, you get a few options here, right? So you can do an individual handout activity or a collaborative workspace activity. So I'm going to show both of those things off. Let's start with an individual handout activity. I'm going to go ahead and click that button, and you'll see that on the student page it already says start, but then on the teacher page it says students will be here once they've connected and started the activity. So let's say this student's ready to start. We're going to click start here. Okay, now that student is up there. Now it says, can you find the dime? From this point on, the student has access to the editing tool. So they have the drawing tool, the eraser, the text, and the picture to be able to insert a picture. So let's say, can you find the dime? I want the student to circle the dime, right? So they're going to circle here. Once they've done that, they can click done. I got a green check over here for the student, so I know he's done. If I click on it, I'm going to see exactly what he just did on his screen, right? Maybe that student messed up. I said, oh, hey, Josh, I just noticed that you answered the question, but you circled the wrong thing. Could you go back and try that again? That student then can then click edit, go back, erase that one, and use green, and then circle a different choice. Click done, and that's going to update what the teacher sees on their side as well. So that's just another way that you can kind of do these individual activities with students as you're going through a lesson. Let's say we're done with this. We're going to click here and go back to our lesson viewer and go on to the next slide. And as soon as you're done, it's going to push everybody into that next slide, and then you can talk about what a dime actually is. And again, this is going to be nice where you'll see that students can't like look ahead in the lesson. They have to stick with you. So that way they wouldn't have known what a dime's worth, right? Because none of us know anything about dimes. Okay, moving on. Another thing you can do, you can do a collaborative workspace activity. So I'm going to click on that one. And this is where you can divide the students who are connected to your classroom up in teams. So I don't only have one person here, so I can't do teams. And you can also have everybody on their own team, meaning no teams at all. So I'll just click, like if you had 20 people, you could split into 4 groups of 5, 5 groups of 4, 10 groups of 2, and it will do all that for you automatically, right? So we're just going to do everybody on one team for this one. And now, like let's say these 5 kids would be able to edit this same document, and these 5 kids would have their own different version of that document. And whenever you go back in here to look at who's doing what, you can click on those teams to see what each student's project looks like. So let's have this group. They'll go in here and they'll say they want to do this way, right? So now I'm seeing what this kid's doing. But if I had multiple teams over here on this side, I'd have a team viewer, and I could click on the different teams as we went through the lesson. All right, moving on. So let's look at a few other things that we can add. I'm going to click the plus here. Oh, I accidentally dismissed my... oh, okay, I see what happened. So whenever I went to add a new slide, sometimes that can mess up your lesson and boot your kid from the class if it's live, but we're going to try this again. So I'm going to click this plus here, and I'm going to do a shout it out activity. This one also requires devices. So whenever you start a shout it out activity, every student in the class is going to get a box that looks like this, and they can start typing in responses. Let's say I just taught something. I'm like, okay, everybody tell me, I want you to list something that's green. And so this kid's going to type lizard. It's in a response. And I have 4 more responses they can use. So maybe they're going to say $1. So as all the students start sending in these shout it out responses, it's going to fill up the board with all of their responses. You'll be able to see who's answered what, and you'll be able to see all the different responses up here. And you then can kind of move these around and sort them. So you could say, okay, these things over here, these are green, yes, but maybe these things over here, if he had said a dolphin, that's not green. We're going to put that over here, right? So then the student would have all their responses. They send all those in. You can look at their responses over on this side. Bada bing, bada boom. You get how it works. It's just another way that you can kind of use the interactive tools and the collaboration tools to kind of make that work together. All right, moving on. So I'm going to go back to my lesson slides here. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what the Smart Learning Suite does. I do want to go back to the original Smart Learning Suite page so I can show you some stuff. So, sorry, a little bit laggy here. And we're going to send this guy packing. Sorry, our one student in our class. You have to go. Chrome's not responding, so thank you for being patient. Appreciate that for my lovely audience as always. Okay, we're going to go back to Drive. Hopefully. Sorry, this computer kind of lagging right now. Okay, I'm going to click plus new. I'm going to go to more, and then I'm going to go back down here to Smart Learning Suite to take me to the Smart Learning Suite homepage. And so I only showed you some of the interactive stuff. I feel like you're going to get the most out of this by experimenting with it on your own. One of the nice things about this is as soon as you go into Smart Learning Suite through your Drive, you can just jump right to an activity or an assessment. So it doesn't have to be part of a lesson. Let's say I'm teaching and I have an idea for collecting some information or getting responses from students, but I don't want to design a whole Smart Notebook lesson. I just want to start with a quick activity. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to do Game Show, and then I am just going to start typing those questions in. Or we're going to do, maybe I just want to jump right to a shout it out or a response or a monster quiz. The monster quiz is fun because then the students will answer the questions and there's like a whole game kind of thing going to it. So it would be worth your time if you're interested in doing this to go on there and play around with some of those different options to see if there's anything fun on there that you want to do. So let's just do a super sort. I'll say over here we'll do continents and not continents. Asia, North America, South America, Europe, Australia, Antarctica. Is that all of them? That's close enough. Okay, and then over here we'll put things that aren't oceans. Okay, click next. Pick your theme. Again, we'll do pirates this time. So you can see I can jump right into a activity like this without having it need to be part of a bigger lesson. So you can just use these tools as parts of your normal class without feeling like you got to use Smart Notebook for everything. So let's go ahead and play this one. You can see what the sort looks like. So Mount Rushmore is a continent? No, they got blown up. So I want to move that over here to not continents. Oh yeah, they shot a cannonball. So you see, this is just kind of a fun thing to do. Again, this could be on the board, and students come up here one at a time and try to get the sort. Or if you run this as a lesson where you're leading the lesson, students could be doing this on their own, on their computers. They could all be playing their own version of this little pirate game here. And, oh, what was I thinking? There we go. Not a continent. And a continent. Alright, so this side, they blow up the other side, they win. Game over. You can reset, you can play it again. That's super duper fun, wouldn't you say? Alright, so we'll finish with that one. Couple other things to share before we run out of time here. Is the assessment is kind of the last thing that we'd like to get to. Oh, and then I want to talk about the Smart Exchange. We'll get to that before we are finished. We only got about 8 minutes left, so we want to hurry this up. So we're going to click Start with Assessment this time, and we haven't actually done any assessments yet. We'll just do poll opinion. Do you like ice cream? Yes. No. Next. These are optional. I'm just going to leave them blank. Okay, so here's the assessment. I could add more questions. I didn't for this one, just for the sake of time. So, just like those interactive activities, you can also throw an interactive assessment in here. And the nice thing about that is you could have that be a thing where you can get assessment data from your students, or you can get an idea of how well they understand the content very quickly, mid-lesson. This is a great way to do your formative assessment. I don't know necessarily it's a great summative assessment tool, but awesome way to collect data in a short and fast way. So let's show this off real quick. I am going to start this lesson, and I am going to get our other account in here. Just a second. There we go. So we're going to go to, whoops, let me put this thing back up here. There it is. Hello, Smart. I need to know this code. And then I'm going to type in 581913 as soon as that pops up. Okay, so here we go. Oh, I might already be logged in. I might have just wasted some time there. Okay, we'll go ahead and join this class since I'm already in this class. And I should see my name pop up over here as a student. Perfect. I'm going to close the join pane. And now my student is logged in over here. We're going to click here. Oh, wait. I got to start this. There we go. Start for class. That should start it up for the class. Me and my student over here. Do you like ice cream? Yes. Got it. Finished. Then you can go in here and you can show your questions, all that sort of stuff. So it could be a quick, timely assessment tool just as part of your normal class while you're working through your other lesson that you've already designed through your Smart Learning Suite. Okay. This would be a great time for questions. Any questions? Looking at that chat box, nothing's going on there, so I'm thinking we're good. Okay, last thing I want to show you before we are finished, finito for the day, is going to be the new Smart Exchange. So I'm going to go back to the EdTech website here for a second, and there's a link on here where it says New Smart Exchange. Now, if you are somebody, especially if you worked with me in the past and we've done anything with Smart Notebook, I have shown you the Smart Notebook Exchange. It's just a place that Smart Notebook puts a bunch of it's basically a repository for lessons and resources online. You can go download that stuff, put it right onto your resources, and then you can either edit it or remix them your own way or just use what's already sitting there. So if you go to that link, and the URL itself is content.smarttech.com, but you could just use that link that I've linked through there on the EdTech website. If you go in here, this gives you an opportunity to search resources that other people have made. So one thing that people make a lot with Smart Notebook are like Jeopardy games. So if you wanted to find like here's Health Jeopardy, right? I could just go ahead, click on that, add it to my account, add it to Smart Notebook Online here, boom, it moves it over and it puts it into my resources. And now I'm going to have to log in here, but you get the idea. This is just going to be a big set of resources. You can preview these things to make sure it's something that you want to use. It has a nice search tool up here at the top where you can find all sorts of stuff. You can drill down, as you can see, by grade, by content level, all sorts of things. Okay, so I did like a life cycle search here. So you got, these are all different things teachers have made to teach life cycles. I got grades, subjects, resource types. Maybe you got lesson, activity, assessment, or a template, something that you could kind of put your own spin on. Yeah, so definitely check out the Smart Exchange because you can save yourself a ton of time by not remaking a lesson that somebody else has already made, or just taking somebody else's cool lesson that you like the idea of and kind of mixing it up for your own use, for your own purpose. Great resource, definitely check it out. Okay, last thing. Well, that's actually it for the Smart Learning Suite. We only got about 3 minutes left, so this would be our last opportunity. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about using this in your classroom, remember, and I always say this, if something here looked cool, made sense to you, and you'd like to learn more about it, you can always reach out to me, and I will be happy to come and help you figure this out a little bit more and figure out how we can help this work for you in your classroom. But until then, let's talk about what we got coming up next. So next week, we are going to talk about creative projects with Adobe Spark. So if you're not familiar with Adobe Spark, it is you probably have heard of Adobe. They do Photoshop, a bunch of other great creative products that are usually extravagantly expensive and hard to use. Well, Adobe Spark is easy to use and free for us in our district, who has allowed it for us to use it, creativity tool where you can make very simple websites, posts for Instagram, pictures, stuff like that, or really awesome video projects. So we'll talk about doing all of that stuff on the 2nd, which is next week. Hopefully you can make it for that as well. Then the week after that, on the 5th, or pardon me, on the 7th, we'll be talking about sketchnoting. Now, I know that's not particularly a tech-intensive, project thing that you might do in your class, and really, it's not tech-based at all. But I just like doing it. I think it's fun. I think it's kind of an interesting way that you can put a spin on stuff that you were already doing in your classroom. So hopefully you can make it on the 7th, and we'll talk about using sketchnoting in your classroom, and you can start mixing up the ways that you have students take notes and basically remember that important information that you're already talking about in your class. Okay, it is 4:29. That's going to do it for us today. I want to thank everybody who turned in live, and I want to thank those of you who are watching this later on YouTube. Remember, if you want to get that credit for being at today's session, you do need to go back to the website and submit this form to receive your hour of PD credit. This just shows me that you have taken something from the lesson today and you have actually created something that you could use in your classroom. It doesn't have to be something you're actually going to use in your classroom, but I can kind of see that you've put together some of the skills of the things that we talked about in today's session. If you also would not mind, if you could evaluate today's session so we can tell if these things are even valuable, if this is something that we should continue doing, or if we should try to figure out a different way to do it. All right, guys, once again, hope I see you on the 2nd next week. Until then, peace. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.